This is Pastor Wade Butler exploring new ways of thinking and old ways of believing. Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Wade Butler, and I want to speak about churches that are in trouble. Many of our churches are in deep, deep trouble. There is conflict between the people with each other. There is conflict between the people and the pastors. Pastors and people are in deep conflict. Pastors and people and their resources are in conflict. All over our Synod, all over the Christian church in the United States, and maybe even around the world, Christian churches are in deep, deep trouble. Now, I think that these sources of trouble have to do with anxiety. And I'm not oversimplifying, I don't think. In reading Peter Steinke's book, I think that How Your Church Works, I think that I'm really on point here when I say that it is a matter of anxiety, terminal anxiety, triangulation, systems theory, principles that have led to this situation. And it's very, very sad. Pastors all over the Synod are being eaten alive because of this anxiety. Criticized, underpaid, underappreciated, hawked upon. Then there are pastors who respond by triangulating and getting members that really like them to gang up on the members that don't like them, and in the meantime, the gospel is almost completely lost, and our churches are not magnetic. Now, thank heavens that this is not true for all of our churches. Many, many of our churches are healthy congregations who are doing the ministry of the gospel and who are really doing a great job of reaching their communities and spiritually growing themselves. It is true that a healthy congregation must first be growing itself. It must be happy with itself. It must be a place where people love to go, where people love to accomplish the mission of going to church, which is to receive that which God is giving, and to receive it for themselves personally. Most anxiety, I think, I'm coming to the conclusion, now these are just my initial thoughts, but it seems to me that most of the anxiety that arises is when people have a lot of anxiety in their lives. They're anxious, they're crammed together, they're feeling very tight about life itself, and at home, at job, at the work, at the cultural changes that are going on in our nation. And they bring this anxiety to the church. Well, it's no wonder that Paul said, be anxious for nothing, but, cast all your cares on Christ. Because when we come into the church, we should leave our anxiety at the door, but it's not quite that easy. And when that anxiety comes to a critical point, it has to act out. It has to act out some way, and it's acting out in our churches because people feel safe to act out in the church because there's no punitive retribution, because excommunication is not something that's done very often, and it's not easy to do, and many times it's not profitable to do. So the people act out their anxieties at church when church should be a place of no anxiety. We are coming to a point of critical mass in our churches because our young seminarians are leaving the seminary with high hopes and high dreams and going into parishes that are not only mistreating them, but are causing them to give up on the ministry altogether. And then the churches are bewildered because they don't understand their own system. They don't understand their own system that is causing this anxiety and these anxious responses that focus on the pastor. What's really happening is the people are focusing like a laser beam, the blame and the shame and the fault on the person in the pastoral office because they are the most vulnerable. They are the most visible, the most responsible, and the most vulnerable, and so they become the focal point of the anxiety of the congregation. Now, how we're going to fix this, I don't know. I am hot on the trail of it, though, because I think that Pastor Steinke and a lot of other people who are working on these issues of helping to fix the problem by understanding the issue. It's a systemic issue. It is a family systems issue. It is not some penny ante issue that has to do with just somebody not getting along or having a different opinion. It has to do with the system itself, the system of the people, and how they work in an organization. It's a big mistake to imagine that an organization is somehow magically transformed if it's a church A church is an organization that does what God tells that organization to do, namely to deliver the word and sacrament to the people for the salvation of their souls and bring people into God's kingdom. But an organization it is. And why should we be shocked? God always works through means, and God works through the means of his church. And by working through the means of his church, he's working through the means of an organization. And by working through an organization, he's working through means of the faults and failures and the challenges and the joys of an organization itself. So we should look at a church as an organization. I think this has been missed. I think it's been missed in the seminaries. I think it's been missed a lot of ways. I think even some of our guys, even some of our pastors can't see the church as a systemic family organization without feeling like they're somehow calling the church something other than the church. But I'm hot on the trail of it, and I would love to hear from anybody. I'd like to hear from anybody who believes that this is the right way to think, this systemic thinking. I'm in training right now for interim pastoral training with the NALUP, the National Association of Lutheran Interim Pastors. I think that a lot of this work is going to have to be done in interims, in the timeout. You know, we need a timeout on the T-ball field to deal with these systemic issues. And I also think that there needs to be an interim or a timeout in the seminaries where this system thinking is taught, because it's like we're sending sheep into a system that they don't know how to act, they don't know how to respond. They're expecting a completely different family system than exists in the local churches. And so I'm just throwing these ideas out there. I'd love to hear anybody's responses. Be sure and let me know. Say something. I'm throwing myself out there because I want to see the church succeed. And right now, the way we're going, I'm not so sure how long we can succeed. Too many people are getting hurt. Too many people are being expelled from the churches by the churches themselves. The recent book called Unchristian, if you want to take a look at that, is a research work that shows that the church is not growing because the church is not a fun place to be and a beneficial place to be. So I'll be thinking along these lines and musing and posting these things to and fro. So be sure and keep an eye on it. But like it if you do. Like it. Don't like it if you don't like it. But all comments would be welcome. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening. This is Pastor Wade Butler exploring new ways of thinking and old ways of believing.